On August 18th, 2015, a hacker group called the Impact Team released dozens of gigabytes of data through a torrent, leaking the names of users of Ashley Madison, the world's premier cheating website. Over the next few days, identities slowly drip-fed to the public, destroying families, ruining marriages, and even ending lives. The website promised discretion, but in the end, all it gave was heartbreak, and it exposed a web of deceit built into the system. But who was the mastermind behind the hack? Who orchestrated the breach? And years later, does it even matter? This is the story of the Ashley Madison hack. In the early days of online dating, websites promised to use algorithms to curate your perfect match out of their list of users. You had a bunch of weirdo middle-aged spokespeople promoting the science of dating, all trying to get you to sign in and of course to spend. Throw down $20 to $30 and you would become a VIP, granting you access to message the person apparently of your dreams. If they were real, of course, but we'll come back to that. Many people, often men, use dating websites to cheat on their spouses. Now, infidelity is nothing new. However, these websites offered a level of anonymity that real-world encounters couldn't really provide. You can be whoever you want online and live out your fantasy through these websites. But if you build your relationship on lies, it's only a matter of time before the truth emerges. Enter Darren M. Morgenstern and Noel Biderman. These entrepreneurs saw a trend in the dating market, and like any good capitalist, they exploited the hell out of it. After all, if people were going to cheat using dating sites, why not give them an exclusive space to do so without judgment? As an early ad for the website said, quote, "Some of us will always find a way to have multiple partners." Inelegant in wording, but completely accurate. So on January 21st, 2002, AshleyMadison.com was launched. And unlike its tame competitors, the website guarantees success or your money back. Yes, your fidelity was their failure, but for men to qualify for that guarantee, they have to sign up and start buying credits. Other dating websites have a flat fee to access more features and more potential partners, but Ashley Madison is run like a casino. Money must constantly flow in from suckers willing to make a bet. Women set up free profiles and message whomever they want without cost. After all, women are the commodity on the website, but male users have to purchase credits to start the conversation. And if you want a real-time chat, that costs even more. Ashley Madison became a massive success with its questionable ethics and racy ad campaigns. They knew what most people wanted out of online hookups, something naughty, discreet, and of course short-term. While all dating apps today offer the same sort of things, in the early 2000s, this novelty attracted a lot of media attention, and the founders quickly learned how to work the crowd for some of that good old free advertising. In 2004, Morgenstern hired a woman to use the site, go out on multiple dates, and secretly videotape them. He then gave the video to the ABC News show Primetime Live. For the mainstream public, this was probably their first taste of Ashley Madison. And the interviews went precisely as you thought they would go. One man confessed to cheating only out of lust. When the plant asked if he was being selfish, he yelled, "Hell yes," but despite his desires, he was in no rush to get divorced because he didn't want to lose his kids. Generally, he and the other men confessed they felt empty, and the affairs simply filled that aching void. Ashley Madison fulfilled their desires without having to face any consequence. As real and raw as these interviews felt, it was all just a giant marketing ploy. Ashley Madison made these conversations into literal primetime TV fodder, making a news segment into a long-form advertisement. They spread the word and the world listened. People are cheating, and we're here to facilitate that cheating. So come on in and cheat on your partner. This of course made the mere existence of Ashley Madison just a huge controversy. News anchors, articles, comedians, everyone took a shot at the website. Noel, however, saw the potential in that kind of negative attention, because the very thing that made one group of people create a moral panic made another group extremely curious. But it took 5 years after the website launched for it to hit 1 million users. If the company wanted those numbers to grow, it would have to try new tactics, and it was time for a rebrand. as well as a series of ads that would exploit that overly thirsty group of men. The new campaign featured the now iconic slogan, "Life is short, have an affair." It was plastered on billboards, television, and the internet. This phrase would sear into the consciousness of the mid-2000s. Some people were outraged, some people signed up immediately, but no matter how you felt, Ashley Madison became a morbid curiosity lurking in the back of your mind. Critics from the website competition like Match.com and Engage.com accused the business of profiting from deception and ruined marriages. Biderman happily engaged his haters, saying, quote, "We're just a platform. No website or 30-second ad is going to convince anybody to cheat." In 2009, the website saw a huge spike in male users after Father's Day and in females after Valentine's Day. Clearly, Ashley Madison found its core audience, and most of that was thanks to co-founder Noel Biderman. You see, he became the website's spokesman, visiting all popular daytime TV shows, generating even more hate and curiosity from the stay-at-home crowd. Biderman didn't mind getting yelled at by Sean Hannity, Dr. Phil, or the View audience. He even had his wife by his side for some interviews, discussing their successful and closed relationship while promoting Ashley Madison, which is very interesting to do. He didn't mind fielding questions about their marriage or being put on the defense, because the whole time it was just a press tour causing chaos with the successful goal of bringing in profits. Nothing was off limits for Biderman. It could be reckless, it could be taboo, and he would do it. I mean, it got to the point that even their failures were all the press that they needed. For instance, in 2009, they tried to purchase streetcar ads in his hometown of Toronto, where Biderman offered up to $200,000 Canadian in addition to subsidizing every bus ticket with the advertisement by 50 cents. Essentially, he was giving money away. It was an incredibly bold move, but it was turned down, and when asked why they turned down such a lucrative offer, the commissioner responded, "It's not about sexuality, it's about cheating." But of course, this failure made for a great headline. And of course, other advertisers were not going to turn down such a lucrative offer. Although after taking the money, many of them did regret it after facing pretty harsh public backlash. This continued for a while. Essentially, they were commissioning billboards, TV spots, and even at one time they tried to purchase an ad for the Super Bowl. They'd figured out their media cycle now. They would make raunchy ads, get some backlash, have the spots pulled, and then repeat. But this was working incredibly well, because realistically, are the people who are signing up to a website with the express purpose written on the front to cheat on your partner the kind of people that are going to turn their nose up at a raunchy ad or care that it's been pulled from their favourite website? No, of course not, so it was working completely as intended. Despite that, it didn't stop them trying to branch out into other weird markets. For instance, Noel kept trying to recruit mostly male clientele wherever they were, attempting to buy jerseys for an Italian basketball club and an Australian rugby team. He even bid to rename the stadium that would become the Meadowlands in New Jersey, but the organisation refused him instantly, the same as when he tried to rename the Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix. To Biderman, it didn't matter if it rolled, ran, or flew, he was going to try and slap an Ashley Madison logo on it. And I guess you can't blame him for trying. As the slogan says, life is too short. Now, considering how out there they were, Noel wasn't particularly charismatic or very thoughtful on screen, but he didn't really have to be. The product spoke for itself. Its presence eclipsed him before he entered the room. Ashley Madison, the site for home wreckers, became a household name, but soon it would be a name most wished that they could forget. On July 12, 2015, the staff of Avid Life Media, the parent company of Ashley Madison, was greeted with an ominous and direct threat in their email, set to the AC/DC song Thunderstruck. A hacker group calling themselves the Impact Team left this chilling statement. "We have taken over all systems in your entire office and production domains, all customer information databases, source code repositories, financial records, and emails." Next came the demands, which were simple. Shutting down Ashley Madison will cost you, but non-compliance will cost you more. We will release all customer records, profiles with all the customer's secret sexual fancies, nude pictures, and conversations and credit card transactions, real names, addresses, and employee documents and emails. Avid Life Media will be liable for fraud and extreme harm to millions of users. After the threat came the accusations. Avid Life Media, ALM, also ran the dating websites Cougar Life, ManCrunch, Swappernet, The Big and the Beautiful, and Established Men, which Impact Team called a prostitution human trafficking website for rich men to pay for sex. Quote, Trevor, ALM's CTO, once said, "Protection of personal information was his biggest critical success factor. Well, Trevor, welcome to your worst fucking nightmare." Impact Team were going to expose Ashley Madison and the other explicit dating websites' clients, as well as the staff, if the whole operation didn't shut down, and shut down now. But of course, former Ashley Madison users had nothing to fear, right? After all, the site offered a full delete service. Members could have their information scrubbed and erased from the site for the very low fee of just $19 US. But that wasn't the case. Users still had to pay with a credit card for the full delete service, and doing so gave all their personal details that were still available in the system. This lie that they told, that would all be gone, net the company $1.7 million in cancellations in 2014 alone. Users who thought that they'd cheated, maybe lived out some fantasies, and walked away free from their digital sins were about to pay the ultimate penance. The Impact Team set their deadline. If Ashley Madison still existed within 1 month, 30 days, they would release the data. Usually, most companies wouldn't give in to threats, but the consequences behind this hack were more far-reaching than most. This was beyond simple threats, beyond identity theft. Millions of people's personal lives were on the line. Surely, that must have shaken the executives to the core. Their entire business model was discretion, after all. You'd think that they'd take this very seriously and attempt to shut down the websites. But of course that would be naive, because you shouldn't expect much from anybody when greed is the only driving factor. Reportedly, Biderman and his team weren't all that fazed by the threats, and as long as the sites were generating profits, they weren't just going to shut them down. So on July 19th, the Impact Team, tired of the navel-gazing from the executives, released a small amount of data just to prove that they weren't bluffing. This included sensitive company documents and the alleged source code of ALM's products. The story made its way to the media, leaking to the cybercriminal reporter Brian Krebs. In a 30-minute phone call with Noel, Krebs confirmed the hack and shared the manifesto with the public. ALM could no longer hide this problem. Biderman reframed their position, quote, "Like us or not, this is still a criminal act." And he wasn't wrong. But this wasn't about facts or the law, and hiding behind this wasn't going to help anybody. Obviously, whoever the hackers were had a moral issue with ALM and what they were doing, and they were not going to back down. And apparently, ALM were just making too much money to care. But for the users of any of these websites, just imagine being them. They were caught in a crossfire, waiting every day for this situation to resolve itself, not knowing when or if all their dirty laundry would be aired for the entire world, but more importantly, to the people who they willfully cheated on. Most of those profiles were just ordinary people who wanted solace, I guess, outside of their marriage. According to reports, some were even high-ranking government officials, maybe even a celebrity or two. The media, of course, was drooling over the possibilities like a dog at the foot of the table waiting for scraps. Meanwhile, ALM held its own investigation, but still completely refused to give in. Everyone in this situation had their own agenda. On August 18th, this is when everything came crashing down. Impact Team released a BitTorrent to a 10GB zip file onto the dark web. You could only access the file using the Tor network, which is an open source software that enables anonymous communication, which is where the hackers issued their response. Quote, "We have explained the fraud, the deceit, and stupidity of ALM and their members. Now, everyone gets to see their data. Too bad for ALM, you promised secrecy, but didn't deliver." If this wasn't bad enough, 2 days later, Impact Team released another data dump, this time over 13 gigs worth, which contained more profiles and corporate emails from all the executives at ALM, including Biderman. It came with a very simple message: time is up. However, the files, luckily, were corrupted, and the media couldn't access them. This hiccup, though, made the hackers more determined, so they released a 19 gig zip file and a special message for Biderman the following day, "Hey Noel, you can admit it's real now. It didn't matter whether you weren't an active member anymore or still married. As long as you signed up at one time, your private info was there for anybody to download, and some of the people combing through the data were out for blood." So what did these profiles contain? After downloading the torrent, you could find full names, emails, passwords, height, weight, addresses, right down to GPS coordinates for over 36 million accounts. Only partial credit card data was available, but that was hardly the point. Just as Impact Team alleged, the full delete program didn't work. And now, internet vigilantes poured over the data looking for the most prominent names to take down or to extort. The most notable name at that time was reality star Josh Duggar, known for his role on the TLC show 19 Kids and Counting. His squeaky clean image was already destroyed following horrific sexual assault allegations, and now the married Philander was in the limelight again for having not only one, but two cancelled Ashley Madison accounts. He was the perfect villain to be the face of this story. His actions couldn't be excused, and no one would dare defend this monster. This opened the floodgates for every moral outrage activist on television and morning news shows. Everybody hated Biderman, and now they had even more cause to dogpile. Even Biderman's own affairs were exposed in the emails. Unsurprisingly, even his marriage wasn't as stable as he claims. Which completely makes sense, because what happily married man makes a website explicitly for married men to cheat? So while Biderman was running defense for the company and his own life, others were running for theirs. According to France 24, the hack contained 1,200 Saudi email addresses, and in case you don't know, Saudi Arabia punishes adultery with the death sentence. Other emails were linked to US government officials and military personnel, possibly putting them at risk for blackmail. This hack became content fodder for anyone not on the list. A radio show in Australia had a call-in segment where listeners could request the DJ to find their spouses, but for some members, this game proved fatal. On August 24th, John Gibson, a pastor in New Orleans, was found dead by his wife. He had taken his own life after the shame of being revealed on the list became too much to bear. Two other unconfirmed suicides were linked to the hack in Toronto. Some groups were scanning the email list and threatening to blackmail the names they found, demanding Bitcoin in exchange for silence. Other hackers sent spam that lured members in by promising to erase their names from the database. When desperate users clicked the link, they were flooded with spyware and viruses. Impact teams celebrated their win as the world scrambled to exploit the story or to hide from it. They even responded to an interview request from Vice. When asked about the Ashley Madison security, they replied, "Bad. Nobody was watching, no security. You could use pass1234 from the internet to VPN to root on all servers." Impact team also admitted that the hack started years ago. They just collected info, waiting for the right time to strike. And apparently, they even had more data on hand, at least 300 gigs in total, of which less than 10% had been released thus far. But the biggest question had yet to be asked. Why? Why would they take down so many others just to expose Ashley Madison? And that's where an interesting reveal came in. We were in Avid Life Media for a long time to understand and get everything. Finally, we watched Ashley Madison signups growing and human trafficking on the sites. We didn't blackmail users, Avid Life Media blackmailed them. Avid Life Media is like a drug dealer abusing addicts. While the human trafficking allegations were troubling, to say the least, it was hard to establish, and Impact Team didn't make an effort outside of that statement to do so. But the hackers did admit to being employed by ALM at one point. Were they still there? Or was this the work of a disgruntled former employee? This gave investigators something to work with, and the call was coming from inside the house, but we'll come back to that one later. For now, the question remained, was Ashley Madison abusing their users? According to a Gizmodo article, out of the 37 million profiles leaked, only 12,000 were active female users, and the other 5.5 million female profiles were abandoned almost immediately after their creation. So, were they even real? Remember, Ashley Madison had a credit-based system. Man had to pay to message a woman that he wanted to speak with or to respond to. So according to the article, if you kept pumping money into the system, you might eventually talk to somebody real, but most men were paying to talk to automated replies from bots. And after they responded to the fake profiles, they would be inundated with even more responses from even more fake accounts. Essentially, once they got the hook into you and knew that you were trying to respond and pay money for this response, they would bombard you with more responses, which you would in turn pay more money for. According to the emails, ALM employees were responsible for creating these profiles, known throughout the company as Angels. The leaked emails also detailed ALM's efforts to get Angel profiles up and running in multiple countries, assigning the tasks to team members called Profile Builders. Biderman contemplated contracting with more companies to produce even more Angels. There were even heavily internal discussions about making each profile seem as realistic as possible, especially if users travelled from state to state. When it came to the profile building, Ashley Madison was strict on quality control. While Biderman desperately wanted to automate the process, those results weren't up to par with the carefully handcrafted forgeries. As the Gizmodo article points out, the company engaged in a deliberate, elaborate, and multi-year campaign of fraud. Men around the world risked their relationships and opened their wallets for a series of fembots. Ironically, Biderman claimed in an interview with Bloomberg News that the site was aimed at women from the colour scheme to the name, but the information all spelled out the opposite. The reaction to this was split. You were either laughing or crying. Many felt anyone who joined the website had this humiliation coming, and those who felt wronged by Ashley Madison wanted something or anything for their pain. A class action suit in Canada was filed against Ashley Madison seeking damages, but for the Canadian citizens to get compensation, they would have to reveal their names, so you'd have to be outed twice, but this time in a court of law. On August 24th, ALM offered $500,000, Canadian, mind you, as a bounty for information that would lead to the arrest of Impact Team. The Toronto police joined the manhunt along with the FBI and Homeland Security, but with the hackers hiding in plain sight. You see, Impact Team did confess to having worked at the company, so it was just a matter of narrowing down who had access to what files and who had the biggest axe to grind. Back in July, Biderman told the journalist Brian Krebs that he was sure the hack was an inside job. Quote, "I've got their profile right in front of me, all their work credentials. It was definitely a person here that was not an employee but certainly had touched our technical services." This started the conspiracy theories flying. Prominent tech giant and certified lunatic John McAfee, RIP of course, published an article concluding that the hacker was undoubtedly a woman. His proof? The use of the phrase cheating dirtbags. Real insightful stuff, John. But the Biderman and data scientist Jeremy Bullock believed the hacker was none other than a former SEO expert, William Brewster Harrison. Emails showed dozens of hate-filled messages from Harrison, and this former employee knew all of ALM's dirty secrets. Harrison was one of the many profile builders at ALM, so he also had access to the company's top secret materials. But more than that, he had a long history of lashing out against former employers online, often creating websites to air his grievances. Oddly enough, a year before his forced departure, one of Harrison's duties was to track down the owner of the spoof website ashleymadisonsucks.com. As proved by the emails, Harrison was given direct orders to harass the owner, Dennis Bradshaw, to sell the domain to Ashley Madison. Harrison sent fraudulent emails to Bradshaw, posing as his girlfriend. He even doxed Bradshaw's lawyer and loved ones on his website. Harrison's tenacity and viciousness paid off, and Bradshaw eventually sold the domain for $10,000 to ALM. Of course, the company kept the name and used it for marketing purposes. Biderman loved the controversy of owning a website called ashleymadisonsucks.com, and he also loved Harrison, the terrifying nature of this employee. But of course the feeling wasn't mutual. Despite collecting a check from ALM, Harrison considered himself a threat to corporate America, penning hip-hop anthems under the name Chaos Dog, in which he challenged executives. His feelings were very clear. He hated the company, he hated their lax systems, and he hated his role in its outright deception. And in November 2011, he was fired. That's when things took a little bit of a nasty turn. Remember, Harrison was an expert at SEO, search engine optimization, and when ALM's executives Google searched Biderman's name, the autocomplete feature started adding the words Jew or Jewish as the first result. And if you click the first page results, you would be led to Stormfront, the premier website for Nazis and fascists. The website was filled with articles targeting Biderman and his contribution to the decline of, quote, Western culture. In early 2012, Harrison even leaked screenshots of the fake fembots he helped create. Even worse, he had access to the servers months after being fired. No one even bothered to shut down his accounts or to change any passwords. In one unhinged, slur-ridden email, Harrison wrote to Biderman, quote, "Just remember, I outsmarted you last time and will outsmart you and outmaneuver you this time too, by keeping myself far, far away from the action and just enjoying the sideline view, cheering for the opposition. We are Legion." A little bit of an Easter egg for anybody familiar with where that comes from. Biderman, however, believed Harrison was behind the whole mess, and all signs pointed to this angry and possibly racist employee. He was sending hundreds of emails with veiled threats of cyber attacks, and he made countless harassing phone calls to ALM executives. The company lawyers contacted the Toronto police and reported this behaviour. Harrison was unstable, tech-savvy, and dangerous. But was he the hacker? Brian Krebs followed up on the lead and found Harrison's family in North Carolina. When he contacted his mother for a comment, she told him some unexpected truths. First, despite all the anti-Semitic rhetoric surrounding Harrison, he was in fact Jewish himself. And second, tragically, he'd taken his life in 2014, nearly 16 months before the Impact Team hack. "I'm not sure he's your guy," his mother dryly replied, and she may have been right. The most recent emails found were dated 2 weeks before the hack, making it impossible. But in early 2015, cyber intelligence firm 471 traced posts on the Russian cybercrime forum AntiChat advertising 32 million Ashley Madison profiles for sale. But the post by a user named Brutium was removed and no evidence of a sale was found. Was this buyer Impact Team? Was Brutium the actual hacker? And did Harrison facilitate this hack prior to his death? To this day, we still don't know. Impact Team never resurfaced, and their identities remain a complete mystery. But none of that matters now. The chaos, the confusion, the media frenzy, that was the goal. And for Impact Team, it was a complete mission accomplished. Days after the hack, Noel Biderman was forced to resign and step down as CEO. The ringleader of the circus was now gone, and that $500,000 is still up for grabs. But even if the leadership changed, did ALM learn anything? The FTC and various other government agencies investigated the company and found them liable for not taking preventative measures to protect their clients. But, as you'll tend to find with almost anything like this, they were let off the hook with a little slap on the wrist, paying a measly sum of $1.6 million in 2017. All the heartbreak, the deception, the fraud only led to a fine that was a fraction of their yearly profits. And Ashley Madison remains online today with over 60 million users and counting. The only real victims were the broken-hearted and those that trusted the website with their privacy, some of which are no longer with us today. But human nature hasn't changed, and people will always be curious about the taboo. And this is one of those rare cases where a massive hack happens and nobody, even years later, knows who was responsible. For me, my biggest question is, did the hackers get what they wanted? Was this the desired outcome? Ruining so many lives and yet still seeing the website online years later, still making money with nothing changing. I'd like to say they wouldn't be happy with the outcome, but just like their identity, I guess we'll just never know.